A Gentleman Undone by Cecilia Grant. Narrated by Susan Ericksen. Copyright 2012 by Cecilia Grant. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Mary Delahant, writing as Cecilia Grant, care of Judith Ehrlich Literary Management, LLC, and was produced in the year 2012 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Prologue. June, 1815. What the devil were you thinking to move him? The surgeon stank of blood. In the meager candlelight allotted to this section of the makeshift hospital, he was all crags and shadows, and slick to the elbows with the life of other men. None of the litter-bearers would stop for him. I waited hours. His voice bled raw at the edges, rasped to almost nothing by a day of shouting over gunfire, shouting over cannons, shouting over the thunder of two nations' cavalry. Just as well he couldn't speak up. This was a church, or had been before its conscription to such gruesome service. Presumably it would be a church again, once all these men could be transported on to Brussels, Bruges. One of the proper hospitals, with proper beds instead of narrow benches and a cold stone floor. At all events, a man ought to show respect. You know they have their orders. The doctor crouched by the bench on which Talbot lay, prodding at his lifeless limbs. Or not lifeless, strictly, because he was not dead. His chest heaved in a weird rhythm that seemed to bear little relation to breath. They must take officers first, and then they look for the men we have the best hope of repairing. Lord knows we've got enough of those to keep us busy. We don't need to go foraging for desperate cases. Surely a doctor didn't do any good to a patient by speaking that way in his hearing. Will opened his mouth to say something to that effect, and closed it again. The man's demeanor must be the least of his concerns. The essential matter, it seemed, was the state of Talbot's arms and legs. Broken as he was, he'd still been able to move fingers and toes when he lay on the field. So to transport him had perhaps been a mistake after.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?